Thanks for tuning in today. It's my favorite day, the day that I get to wrench on stuff. And I'm gonna confuse you with this reference on what I'm doing to this motor. So today I'm going to wrench on the Element a little bit. I want to switch out some components. I am going to keep the 500 LP prototype in the rig for today. Maybe switch that out to the purple one. I pulled it out. Let me know in the comments what you would do. I know what I should probably do is match the purple motor to the purple servo, but we're going to keep the servo in. And I am going to put in this CrawlMaster 2700 kV 540 stub motor. This is a sensorless 10-pole in runner, and I'm going to mate it to one of our CrawlMaster ESCs that I have put into a little printed piggyback unit. I'm gonna confuse you with the reference, and let's just get started on it. Is my soldering iron plugged in? Yes, it is. Well, I could just install the ESC on there with some long wires. Of course, we have long enough wires, could solder them on direct, but yeah, this is already right here, and I want to clean up the wiring on this rig a little bit, so we'll wait for this to warm up. Soldering iron is warmed up, so I'm going to remove the wires from the motor first. We shall add a little bit of solder to the iron just to get our heat transfer going. And these are some pretty beefy solder tabs, so it will take a good bit of heat to get that solder flowing. If you don't have a big enough iron, this is a difficult task. But this UA 9378 has been doing a great job. Come on now, it's so close. There we are. I do so many motor soldering jobs over at the hobby house that I need some of our jigs. Might as well design one to print at this point. That way it's relatively inexpensive long term. There we are. That's right. The mic that I'm wearing is auto leveling, so if I don't keep talking all the time, the levels change. That's one thing to look out for in a lavalier mic, is whether or not it is auto leveling. If y'all have any good suggestions for a lav mic that is not auto leveling, or that at least we could switch to a non-auto leveling mode, let me know in the comments, because that would be extremely helpful to us. Seems like it's always a crapshoot, and that's not something that they generally put on the sales ad. All right, I'm gonna remove some of this just so I can have a easier shot. And this is the CrawlMaster ESC. I've got some short wires soldered onto there. The power wires go into the back. Little TPU 3D printed piece with the receiver wire coming out of it as well. I put a little piece of electrical tape over the back side, and essentially we just slap this over the end of the motor and solder the wires down, and we're good. Pretty straightforward, it's pretty easy, but first I am going to add a little bit of solder to the existing wires there to give us a good shot, a good chance, because there's no telling what that amalgam is on the existing wires. Although it's probably the last one that I use, but I don't know what it is, so we'll just add a little bit more to make our lives easy. Ooh, boy, that's getting hot. Better have chef hands to do this, or maybe something else to push down. Oh, a little speck of solder just flicked out of nowhere right in between our two phases. Would have shorted out the motor, but I've got an eagle eye and I caught it, although I also have a pigeon toe. Easy soldering job. Now, as you see, the ESC just sits on the back, and since it's a stubby motor, it is actually now the length of a normal 540. And we may as well just bench test this guy. It already has a JST coming off of it, so I'm gonna plug in my JST Medusa. This particular ESC does not have an integrated BEC, so we'll need to power our radio with the Castle BEC for this particular build. And then we'll plug this guy in and see if it works. There we are. There we are, she's moving, and the pinion for forwards is going this way, which would push this way and make us go backwards. Yes, because it's reverse rotation for this particular one. I could probably reverse my throttle. There we go, goes in the other direction. Perfect. All right, we're going to power down and bolt in our motor. I am using the stock spur with an 18 tooth pinion. I believe that 18 tooth is stock. We'll see how that does with the 2700 kV. I'm just going to test the depth of the mesh there. Not the greatest, so I'll flip the pinion around. And we'll see how that goes. On this particular model, it looks like we'll have to bring this pinion down all the way. Perfect. Now, on this new motor design, I have 8 motor holes. Yeah, 8 motor holes. 4 different ways that it can be bolted up. Or would that be 8 different ways? I guess it'd be 8 different ways if we include the 180. But this will allow me to get my wires at just the right angle. Oh yeah. Let's see. Where shall I want these wires? I think, pointing sideways. Sideways or straight up? What would you vote for? Or somewhere in the middle? I think I'm going to go for straight up. That's what we'll do. As an aside note, changing out this motor, my motor has blind holes, blind screws, whatever it's called, blind holes in the face, so you can't put too long of a screw in or it just won't go any further. 7.5mm screws are stock with the Element transmission, and I am replacing it with 5mm screws, or I think these are technically 6mm screws. But we're going to put a washer behind them. Ah, very nice. That's what we needed. Yeah, so 6mm screws are working just fine. If I do remember correctly, the holes themselves are threaded 6mm deep. But more than likely, they only got about 5mm of actual thread into it, because the end thread, unless you're using a very specific tap, the end thread doesn't really get cut. Doesn't get cut effectively, so. On this particular width of motor plate, I had to use a 6mm screw for this particular motor, for this CrawlMaster that has the blind holes. And the reason for the blind holes is so crud and water doesn't get into the motor. This is the same for something like the Fusion also has blind holes, which I want to check real quick. We can see how deep the ones are on this, which I don't think this 7.5 is gonna, yeah, it also wouldn't work. If you're gonna install the Fusion into the Element, you're gonna need some extra washers on this, or a shorter 6mm screw would also work. Let's all double check the stock screw length on the Element, just to be sure we get it right. 7.8, these are 8mm screws. Too long for sealed face motors. At least say that. All right, let's see how our pinion mesh turned out. I just kind of shoved it against there and tightened up the screws. Didn't do too fancy of a job, but it's nice and loose rolling, so should be fine. Now that we have the motor and ESC mounted, we'll plug that into the radio. The brown or the black always indicates negative, and negative goes towards the outside edge of practically all radios on the market. So if you ever don't know, or if something's not working, just make sure you have that ground on the outside edge and you should be fine. All right. We've got power coming from here. I have this little Medusa head JST. Splits the power into the Castle BEC that is powering our radio. I could probably mount that BEC down here as well. And then we will also use the JST to power our servo. There we are. And there's probably going to be some nice way of routing all of this. And it will be easier to find it if I get that Castle BEC mounted. So I'm going to do that. Figure out which way it'll go. And I've got some hook and loop. So I'll probably just do a little hook and loop right there. I tend to do the soft side of the hook and loop, the Velcro, on the objects, and then the flat portions, the plastic hard portions, the hook, I guess it would be, on my actual rig. Do you use the same standard, or do you use the opposite standard? I originally went to having the soft part, the loop, on the objects that move around, because back in the day I was using this to attach lithium polymers to various rigs. At the time, mostly, what would it be, the 18th scale RC10 at first, RC18 when they came out. I think that was it, or was it Losi? Oh man, it's been so long. The Losi Mini, that's what it was. I was originally doing that. And so I used the flexible side, the loop side, on the batteries, because the batteries at the time, LiPos, were kind of puffy shaped all the time. They weren't really flat. So it was easiest to have the loop stick. I have to do that to remember which one is it. Is it the hook? Is it the loop? It's easiest to have that stick onto batteries if it was flexible. So that was the original choice. And now I have that standard on all of my rigs. And you know how that goes. When you have a standard, you just want to keep using it for some reason. I wonder why. So that's the rig. There we go. Yeah, pre-mounting that ESC made it feel like it was a little too easy of a job. All right, we are going to find the battery and plug it in, and this one's ready to go. We're gonna see in some future test videos where I test out this motor. I'll probably switch out the servo and test out the servo for a future video as well. But it's time to go crawl. I guess real quick, I can at least boot it up on the bench and we'll make sure that it works and it works properly. There we are, and I will go ahead and put these wires, I'll tuck them under here so that it doesn't get hung up in the drive shaft. I guess it would have been smarter if I put my radio on this side, but I can always put some more hook and loop later and just move it all really fast. There we go. Ooh, steering is correct. Nice and fast. And how is our throttle? I'd say that's pretty good for sensorless. Let's see, will it go over this soldering? It just pushes it across the table. There we go. We'll use our trim. I can see the backlash between the wheels working. All right, so that's working. What about wheel speed? Yeah, I think that'll do. Yeah, that'll do. Cool. Well, this guy's gonna crawl off into the sunset, I guess. I do thank you for tuning in. We're going to find ourselves outside on another testing day. And as always, have a good day.